Welcome, everyone. We're glad that you're here for the Team Leaders webinar. And again, as I just shared, there are phone numbers in the chat, and the chat window can be found by going to the bottom of your Zoom window, and there are some icons, and one of those says chat. And just click on that chat, and you'll be able to see a list of phone numbers. You'll also be able to see the handouts for today for the Team Leader webinar. You can also, I'm going to ask you in a few minutes to put a little bit of information in the chat, and you can also do that. So lots of information right there. So I want to start out today with introductions. My name is Drew Andrews, and I am the director at the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities, and we'd like to welcome everyone. And today, presenting with me on this Team Leader webinar, I have Claudia. Would you like to introduce yourself, Claudia, and tell folks your position?
Sure. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Claudia Villapunto. I am the Assistant Director in Infrastructure and System Management for the center. So anything technology related, you can come to me and my team, and we are going to be happy to help.
Thank you. And Christian Zimmerman. Christian, if you'll introduce yourself.
Hello, Christian Zimmerman, Technical Assistance Coordinator, and I am here to help you with anything and everything that I can with your applications, grants, and reporting.
Thank you. And our newest team member, who has only been with us a couple of weeks, but we're very excited to welcome Cheryl. So Cheryl, if you'll introduce yourself and maybe tell folks a little bit about yourself.
Well, hello, I'm Cheryl Sandvoss, and I work with the center, and I am also Technical Assistance Coordinator. I am coming here from Volusia County. Prior to that, I was with the Florida Inclusion Network, so I'm really excited to continue my work on inclusion just in the post-secondary world. I'm looking forward to meeting everybody face-to-face in a couple of weeks.
Yes. So I'm going to start sharing the presentation, and let me share my screen. You'll see yourselves. And then when I do this, everything should work right. Okay, are you seeing the right screen? If you can give me a thumbs up, please. Great. So in the chat, if you will, please type your name, the college or university that you represent, your program status, if you're an approved program, a newly approved program, or if you're seeking approval for those that are not yet approved. And then maybe any questions, 1 to 3 questions that you might have about the Florida Post-Secondary Education Program Planning Institute, or what we may call throughout this webinar, the FLPEPPI. So I'll give you just a second to do that. And I'm going to click on chat here myself so that I can see any, as that information comes in. Thank you so many folks for giving us that information. And team, if you'll help me keep an eye on that. And so if there are questions, if you'll please bring those to my attention. Okay. So the purpose of our webinar today is for you to understand the background of the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities and the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs, and to help you prepare for the roles and expectations of a team leader at the FLPEPPI, and also clarify the work and product expected of the teams participating in the FLPEPPI. We're going to do that with an overview of the Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act, an overview of the Florida Post-Secondary Education Program Planning Institute, an overview of the Strategic Planning Tool, and then a few slides on just preparing for the FLPEPPI, and then we'll have a time for questions. But at any time, you may write your question in the chat. Feel free. So, an overview of the Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act. In 2016, legislation was passed, and I know many of you have heard this before, but we've got lots of new folks here, and it was known as the Florida Postsecondary Comprehensive Transition Program Act. It's legislation that many other states throughout the country are very envious of because it established a statewide coordinating center, the Florida Center for Students with Unique Abilities at UCF. It also established Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs, which align very closely with the federal Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary, or CTP, programs that once you submit your application, allow your students with intellectual disabilities to access financial aid. It also put money into this legislation. And so it funds scholarships for students to attend approved programs. And it also funds initial and continuing grants to institutions of higher education who have approved programs. So for Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs, I just want to remind everyone of the requirements just to set the framework here. We're looking at students earning a meaningful credential that might include some type of industry certification. Our focus is on employment outcomes. We want students to be employed, and we want students to have better life outcomes. This is an inclusive text, which means that we want context, and we want students to be with their non-disabled peers to the greatest extent possible. We want them to participate at no less than half time. It requires that you have a definition of satisfactory academic progress, that students are moving forward. And it requires that within the first year of becoming an approved program, that you complete the federal Comprehensive Transition and Post-Secondary Program application. So you're here today because you are a team leader that will be working with your team, and the team should be folks from your institution of higher education and others that will support your program at the FLPEPPI. So the Institute focus is creating and or expanding Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs through professional development and strategic planning. So it's a hybrid conference. You have not just sessions, like we've all gone to conferences and had sessions or participated in professional development, but you're also going to have time to take that knowledge and to put it into strategic planning for your program. There's also an application of the program planning model. We'll be providing information regarding evidence-based and promising practices. And you're also going to be creating a network of other type-alike institutions. If you're a technical college, there'll be many other technical colleges there, a state college or a university, the same. But you'll also be meeting folks that simply have programs that are similar to yours or might be offering the same credential, and you'll be able to bounce ideas off of them, and you'll get lots of ideas. I tell folks, this is not a competition. It's really a collaboration. I'm going to step away for 1 second and shut my door. Excuse me. And when we talk about the application of the program planning model, we start everything before someone begins an FPCTP application or before they begin an FPCTP grant. We ask them to strategically plan. We want them to look at what are the best practices. We want them to really think about what the best way that I can explain the program planning model is it gives you an overview and a framework of everything that you should be thinking about and focusing on when you're developing your program. And then as your program continues, how do you follow a continuous improvement model? So the FLPEPPI's purpose is to increase or expand Florida post-secondary comprehensive transition programs across the state of Florida. And we're going to be, we're going to have a group, I think there are 38 institutions of higher education that are going to be represented there on 35 teams. There are about 120 eligible institutions throughout Florida. And that's at universities, state colleges, community colleges, and career tech centers, which include in Florida what we call our tech colleges. And our community colleges, and this is pulled from the legislation, have now in most cases become state colleges. We want to increase the understanding of available resources for FPCTPs and their students. If you're just developing a program, this is going to be new to administrators, new to staff, new to families, new to your community, new to your students. So we want to help provide an understanding of what programs should look like. We want to increase your content knowledge for developing or enhancing your established Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program. All of our programs continually look at how do we improve, how do we expand, how do we possibly offer more credentials, how do we include more students, how do we improve the success of our students. So to do that, we will facilitate planning time for your interdisciplinary teams. There will also be lots of time for networking with other folks at the Institute. You're going to share and collaborate your accomplishments. So what have you done well? We want to hear about it. Others want to hear about it. Have you solved a roadblock that you were facing or a stumbling block that you faced? And how did you solve it? Because for other type of like institutions, that can be very valuable information to help them move forward as well. We're going to help you address sustainability. Of course, we have grants, but we want to help you look at what are other resources for you to expand your programs. And we're there to support existing and new teams, providing information regarding evidence-based and promising practices. And we have some really great breakout sessions planned for you during the Institute. So let's sort of look at what's going to be happening. As is usually the case, we will be meeting the week after the 4th of July. So on Monday, July 8th, beginning in the morning, check-in will be from 7 in the morning until 6 in the evening. And what we're going to have before the Institute is a pre-Institute workshop. And there will be breakfast from 8 till 9. And then at 9 to 3, there will be a pre-Institute workshop, developing new and renewal Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program applications. This year, we have 6 programs that will be renewing their application, and we have other programs that are attending that are at different stages in their application. And so this workshop will take you through the FCSUA community, through all of the application requirements, and will be able to be in the FCSUA community, and we can help answer questions for you and also have some time for discussion among the group. So that is on Monday from beginning with breakfast at 8 through 3. Beginning at 3:30 will be the welcome to the Florida Post-Secondary Education Program Planning Institute. And then at 4:15 to 5:30, we're going to have our employer award and our student panel. And for those of you who attended last year and gave us feedback in the evaluation, this was one of the changes that we made based on your feedback. So while you're at the Institute, please be sure and complete the evaluation, because we get great ideas from all of you on ways that we can improve. And so we moved the student panel to the opening, and also our employer award to the opening. We want to celebrate our successes. From 5:30 till 6, we'll have a quick get together with everyone that's there for the first time. The rest of you will go ahead and go out into the portico area for our reception and showcase. We'll have hors d'oeuvres. There'll be a cash bar. All of the programs will have a table set up with information on that table, and you'll be able to see how people promote their program, what they do when they're attending a conference as a program, or when they're at a transition fair. And we'll also have some agencies there that support Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Programs. There'll also be lots of great door prizes and lots of great snacks too. Beginning on Tuesday morning, and I'll tell you, Tuesday is going to be a busy day, but we also heard you say that on Wednesday, you wanted to leave before traffic started in Orlando in the afternoon. And so when we get to Wednesday, you'll understand why why Tuesday looks the way that it does. So we're going to start from 7:30 to 8:30 with breakfast, and then there'll be breakout sessions, followed by facilitated planning time, where your team will come together with a facilitator in a room of your own, and you will have facilitated planning time using the planning tool. Then from 11:45 to 1:15, we're going to have a type-alike session. So there'll be a session for technical colleges, state colleges, and universities, and there'll be a buffet lunch that will be served to each one of those groups in those rooms. At 1:15, we have breakout sessions again until 2:15. At 2:30, there'll be another facilitated planning time, and that will go until 4:15. And then from 4:30 to 5:30 will be the final breakout session of the day. On Wednesday, we start again, and this says continental breakfast. And really, I don't know how I missed this, because it's not a continental breakfast. It's a full breakfast with good things on the breakfast, like bacon and eggs. And so my apologies that I didn't catch that. It's not a continental breakfast. Both mornings are a full buffet and a full breakfast. That's important to me, and I'm sure it's important to some of you, but there's also a lot of healthy options on that buffet as well. So we'll then start with facilitated planning time from 8:30 until 10:30, whenever you'll meet for the third time with your team, and hopefully find some time either before that or a quick break during that to check out if you'll be leaving us on that day. And then from 10:45 until 12:15, we'll have again a report out in type alike. So universities and state colleges will be together, and also the technical colleges will be in a separate room. And that's a report out on what will your focus be with your strategic planning for the coming year. It's a quick report out, just a little over a minute, and a chance for you to just share specific things that you're going to focus on. There's so many things in the planning tool. There's no way that you can address every time, every item, every year. So what will your focus be for this coming year? And then from 12:15 until 1, we will have a box lunch and closing. And at 1, if you're not planning to stay for the post-institute workshops, you are free to go, because in the evaluations, we had several folks say that they really wanted to be able to get on the road for folks that really need to be back to their work by late Wednesday so that they can be there for Thursday. For others who may be staying at 1 until 4, we will have post-institute workshops. There are 2 different workshops. So for those of you who maybe have an initial and continuing grant proposal that you're going to be working on this year, there's going to be a workshop for you. And for those of you who already have grants, there'll be a second workshop that happens in another room, and that will be on FPCTP grant invoices, adjustments, and modifications. So that's best for those folks that already have a grant in place, but just understanding more of how to receive your money, how to move your money, how to extend your money, or how to get more money. So those are both very important, and they'll go from 1 until 4. So I want to talk for just a few minutes about the Institute components. There are 4 major components to the Institute. One is those content breakout sessions, and we're focusing on topics that you have either requested or topics that we have received lots of questions about this year. There are 18 breakout sessions, and that's divided into 3 breakout times. So we have 3 breakouts. Each time there are 6 sessions that are offered. There's also facilitated team planning meetings, and that's a time for your team to come together. And I really want you, we have so much, we've received lots of positive feedback, because at first people are like, so what does that mean we're going to do? It's really a time for your team to meet together, to discuss your program, to talk about how you improve your program. What are the things that you need to work on for your program? For you to talk about what are the goals that you want to set, and those goals will then transfer over to your FPCTP grant proposal. All of those things. Also to look at your needs. There's a needs assessment in the tool, in the planning tool as well, to look at what your needs are. There are also content resources. We have lots of agency folks there. We also have our own team there. So when you're planning and you need support, not only will you have a facilitator there working with you to help support you using the online strategic planning tool, but you'll also have access to content resources who can come into your room. And those may be folks that presented during the Institute, or just simply agency people or our team that you can ask questions. And the strategic planning. This is just really a time for you. You will be able to print out your strategic plan. You can share that with folks at your institution and show the work that you're doing. And I've been in education now 30 years. And I think for 30 years, I've been involved in some type of strategic planning. It's, to most of us, it's not something that's new. It's simply a part of what we do. So here are those 3 different things that I sort of went through already. And you have this, the content sessions, sharing evidence-based promising practices, requirements of the FPCTP Act, experts in the field, guidance, those facilitated team planning meetings. Your team, the team members, post-secondary faculty and staff, maybe a special populations coordinator, someone from disability services. There'll be, I think we have 30 vocational rehabilitation counselors that will be there, that will be joining us. It may be a parent or a student, and it may be folks from your local K-12 system, where most of your students are probably coming from, that could be a member of your team. So think about beyond your institution to what the greater group could look like. During that facilitated team planning meetings, as I said, you'll be with a facilitator. So you're going to go through the tool, you're going to enter the team and date, and you may need to update your team. It seems like every year we have new people on teams, maybe someone that has retired or taken a different position. So you'll update that. That's step 1. Step 2 is to assess your current status and identify, where are you? What are your needs? What are your priorities? What's working well? Step 3 is make a plan. And then that's whenever you can have those content resource visits, content session debriefs. So the breakout sessions that you attend, and hopefully your team can break up and attend many of the sessions, and you can talk about what information you received and also make decisions on where you're going to go during the next round of sessions. The planning tool can be found at transitionprogramtool.org. And you're going to end up, we ask that every team have one quality goal for this coming year. Maybe you have 2, but we also encourage you not to develop too many goals because it could be difficult for you to really track all of those. And this is just a way for you to continually be looking at ways to improve your program. You'll also spend some time during that facilitated team planning meeting, your 3rd meeting, to prepare for team report out. And we also we try to make this as enjoyable and fun as possible. And so folks choose lots of different ways to report out. It could be a short skit. It could be a poem. It could be a cheer. It could be a song. It could be whatever you want it to be, or it can just simply be a chart paper that you read out what your goals are going to be. But you'll see, it really is a lot of fun. Those experts in the field, they'll be available during your 2nd and 3rd team planning meetings. They'll be able to come in for about 20 minutes. So make notes about key questions that you have for them. You'll be able to request them through the Whova app. Whova is the conference online platform that we use for you to, and if you're registered, and I think all of you on the webinar are registered, you've already entered Whova, you'll do your registration, you'll find the agenda there, you'll find reminders there, and you'll find announcements there. And if you haven't downloaded the app for your phone, it's really, the app on the phone is very user-friendly. If anyone has any questions with that, Claudia can help with that, or Alex, who's on her team, can also help you with that. So when we talk about the planning tool, I just want to quickly go through these next slides, and I really wanted you to have a copy of these slides because I'm sure you've heard this before, and I don't want to belabor the point. But the taxonomy for post-secondary comprehensive transition programs is a taxonomy that was developed by Dr. Kohler and a team of experts in inclusive post-secondary education. And it is grounded in her taxonomy for transition, also the work of Dr. Lyman Dukes from USF, and on the success of students with disabilities in post-secondary education, and also work by Meg Griegel and her team, and she's the director of Think College, where they looked at benchmarks in programs. It serves as part of our capacity building model. So I'm a paper pencil person. I still like to have a paper copy of things. I do a lot of things virtually, but I like a paper copy. But, you know, we're going to quickly go through the organizer that sort of gives you that graphic look of and shares with you the taxonomy. It helps me put everything into perspective whenever I look at this, because here in the center are students. And so when you plan, you want to think, okay, do we need to focus more on our students this year? And a lot of times when people are starting the planning process, that's where they start. Or do we want to focus on faculty and staff? Do we want to focus on our program and our institution where we're located? Or do you want to focus on those concept and system development, which includes your mission and it aligning with the mission at your institution and how your Florida Post-Secondary Comprehensive Transition Program aligns with that? The commitment to your institution of having a diverse population of students, including students with intellectual disabilities, accommodations and modifications, those standards of practice, evaluation of metrics. Sometimes people are concerned about bringing students with intellectual disabilities on campus, thinking it may in some way negatively impact. Out of our 30 programs, we have had no programs that have had any issues with their metrics being impacted by developing a program. So as we look through this, and again, I've shared this mostly so you'll have a copy of it, but what we're looking at are things that we could all probably name if we're familiar with the disability field. We're looking at person-centered planning and the importance of that, self-determination skills, paid work experience, financial aid support. Your students will be receiving scholarships. Your students can also apply for other financial aid, and in students' rights and responsibilities. For your faculty, and I'm sure that at this point, you're beginning to become very aware of this, professional development's important for all faculty. Also, that all learners have access and supports that they need, and that your faculty and staff engage in and support the programs. For programs and institution, you're looking at student recruitment and enrollment, and we have some great sessions on recruitment and retention this year, credentials and competitive employment, and we have other great sessions on employment, materials and resources, and then program evaluation. All of these are going to be touched on during the Institute. Here's the concept and system development, and I've already sort of touched on the main headers in that area. So that's sort of our taxonomy. The taxonomy is the content for the strategic planning tool. So when you get into the strategic planning tool, you will find the taxonomy. And at this time, I'm going to turn things over to Claudia, and she's going to talk with you about an overview of the strategic planning tool. Claudia?
Okay, so again, good afternoon, everyone. This screen that you're seeing here, it's what Drew is referring as the strategic planning tool. You see that the planning tool, as it is located at transitionprogramtool.org, it has two components. We are going to be working on the post-secondary education component. So that's where all of you are going to log in. One thing that I want to mention before I move on, and it's very important in this screen, is that email address that you're seeing down there. That is the FCSUA support@ucf.edu. That email goes to us here at the center. It goes to me and to the rest of my team. So any questions that you might have, any issues that you need to address, access. So that is the best way to reach out to us. And you can always find that email address if you go to the transitionprogramtool.org site. Can you move on to the next slide? One thing that we want to point out, and is because as we are growing, a lot of you have been now in the FCSUA community also. So we just want to mention that sometimes it can be a little bit confusing. And we want to point out that these are two different systems. The FCSUA community takes care of all the applications, grant proposals, and invoices, while the strategic planning tool focuses on the within your strategic plan and building up your logic model. So we actually are going to have two big charts in multiple places at the Institute, so you can become more familiar with the difference between the two systems. As I said, the community, it's basically when you wrote your application, where you are writing your application, your grant proposal, when you were submitting scholarship request, when you will be invoicing us when you have a grant approved, and submitting all the reports that are required by the legislation. Well, the planning tool, it's that system that I was just mentioning is where you will go through your planning process that utilizes the taxonomy. It's where after you do that planning process, you come up with a plan, you will go back during our Mid-Year Institute and you will complete your mid-year progress update. It's where you will check how are you doing. And you will also have the opportunity, and most of you should be at this point of the process now, is closing out your 2024 plan and is completing your end of the year report. So all this that is related to your strategic planning happens in the strategic planning tool. So we want to mention and start emphasizing the difference between the two platforms. So as I was saying, the strategic planning tool, it can be found at the transitionprogramtool.org. And as I said, we're going to be using the post-secondary education side of it. And once you log in, you will be able to see the post-secondary assessments. Once you click next to it, you are going to find your most active assessment. So you will definitely click select, and it will open that assessment with all this the different steps through the planning process will come up. The first thing that you will do, and as Drew was mentioning earlier, it's going through every step. So at the Institute, you will focus on step 1 through step 3. Step 1, even that you will look at it and it seems very simple, it is very important. The good thing about this tool is that it clones your team from last year, with the exception of your facilitator in case that we have to change it. But basically, when we open 2025, which should be at the end of next week, you're going to have a 2025 plan, and that's going to bring over all your team members, your team leaders, and note takers that you have assigned during your previous planning cycle, basically during your 2024. So my advice is that you go through that list of team members and you make sure that everyone that is in that list is who it should be there. So make sure, some people might have left. You have the possibility as a team leader to remove them from the team. So you will have that possibility, and add those others that might be new to your team and they're just going to the FLPEPPI for the first time. So now they need access to the strategic planning tool. One thing to mention is as a team leader, you can have, there are teams that actually have multiple team leaders. So we have allowed for every plan to have up to 2 team leaders and 1 note taker. You as a team leader can decide if, for example, you want to be more involved in the conversation with the facilitator and the rest of your team, and you want to designate one of your team members to be the one entering the information in the tool, that is your note taker. You can go ahead, log into that step 1, and you can assign that person that has very good note-taking skills and good typing skill into this online platform, so that it's a good strategy for when you go into your meetings. Another important factor related to your role is that you have access to all the previous plans that are related to your team. Let's say that you are a new team, new team leader. You just became your team leader for your program or your institution trying to become an approved program. You might want to look back if there were previous plans that are in the system, and you can do that. You have full access to everything that the team has entered in this system as well. One thing that I also like a lot is how the dashboard and the planning tool looks like. So I really like the sections that are related to sharing information. So I want not miss mentioning that. Drew, can you go back one? Thank you.
Yes, it jumped. Sorry.
It's okay. So so that's one thing that you can actually use in your favor for your team. It's a place for you to share information, all kind of information, different type of documents. So you can even organize them by folders. Like you have in here, you have a folder name application. There is a document called report progress. So you can do that. It's a common place, a one stop for every kind of information that you might want to share with your team related to your strategic plan. Same thing with links. There are a lot of things online these days, so definitely take advantage of the link information so you can share all those good resources with your team. So once Another element in the dashboard is that everything that you are entering in the planning tool, as soon as you start progressing to all the steps, even from just the list of your team members, can be downloaded. So that's an important factor, is that all the steps you will have the option to download as a PDF or as an Excel file. As you're doing your assessment through all your domains, as you're working on your plan, those can be downloaded in those different formats, and you can share that with anyone that it's not in the planning tool with the rest of the team, but you still want them to look at your strategic plan. The second step is, once you're done entering all your team members, so you move on to assess your status. This is when you are going to see the taxonomy in action, because you are going to see all those 4 domains that Drew was explaining and how the students are at the center. You don't necessarily have to address all of them. It's a lot. There is a lot of good content in there. So you are the ones that are going to know, you and your team, which area is the one that you want to focus on. At least one good goal, that is really a good strategy. Maybe 2, but too much, it might not be feasible. So pick that area that you think it is the one that you are needing that progress, and the assessment status is going to give you that information, because you're going to have those benchmarks, you're going to have those reflective questions that are going to help you to address and to answer those questions, and know how are you doing on this students area or in the faculty, how good are you implementing those different benchmarks, as if they really are needing to move forward with a plan or not. Drew, can you move to the next one? I want to there, that's exactly what I wanna show them. So this is what I was talking about. These reflective questions are very specific to those benchmarks and those domains. So if you don't know, don't worry about it. Read them with your facilitator, and the facilitators are very experienced with the tool. They know the taxonomy, and definitely they will help you. They will guide you through the process, but the reflective questions will tell you, or it will help you to know how are you good, or where's the extension of your implementation related to that benchmark in that specific domain. How are you, how's the quality of your evidence and your data? What indicators are you going to use to measure? Because that's really what you need to think about, percentage and numbers, if that is the case. So those example indicators are definitely a good resource for you to determine that, and you're going to see those in every domain, in every benchmark. So definitely go through them. Not that you have to complete them all, but it will help you to understand where do you want to focus on. Then once you are done with your assess status, what good thing to keep in mind, and one thing that I do like a lot about the strategic planning tool, is how they actually connect with your application and your grant. And that's why sometimes it's important, and some folks get confused. Oh, what's the community? What's the strategic planning tool? It's because, and that's why we put the strategic planning process and at the center and the first step, because it will help you write your application. It will help you write your grant. And there are a lot of connections between that and this to the application and the grant proposal. So these are in the slide, so you can definitely look at the application questions and to the grant proposals, and look at them in the also when you open the planning tool. So once you have assessed your status, and you have decided, oh, I want to focus on the students this time, or I want to focus on faculty, then you move on to make a plan. So you write your goal. So you select what strategies are you going to take to achieve this goal. What tasks I'm going to have to complete to achieve this goal. Who is going to be responsible for those tasks, and what is the timeline? You're going to be able to set up a date. You're going to be able to set up a person that's responsible, but you also are going to define what are going to be the results of those tasks. You're going to be writing your outputs and then your outcomes. And what kind of outcomes are they going to be? You have to think about that. long-term or short-term or intermediate. Think about them from that perspective. And we also ask you different questions so we can assist in any way that we can. If you have any technical assistance needs, you're going to have a question about that, what additional resources you might need to get this plan implemented. So this is how this looks in the user interface. So here's where you define your task. That's where you will set up a person responsible and you will set up a date. One thing that I do like a lot about the task section specifically is that you can sort your tasks. You can organize them. So maybe you enter, let's say, five tasks, and then you discuss with your team and you say, oh, but we want to accomplish this one first, but you wrote them in second or third place. You can move that task up and you organize them the way that makes sense for your team. And then you will move on to write the outputs that align with those tasks in order to achieve that goal. And here are the outcomes. One thing that I want to mention in here, look at those it's like, I think they're kind of dark blue links in there. Those are also examples. So we will be guiding you through the entire planning process with all these examples. So you're going to see example tasks, example outcomes. You will see indicators and data sources. What are you going to be using to measure this outcome? So all those are available in there for you. And as we mentioned earlier, they're specific to that domain and that benchmark for that taxonomy. So this is a step 4. We don't have to talk about this at this level of like extension now, because you really are not going to be doing step 4. But as I mentioned, there is a reporting component in the tool. So you will come back to it in January. So you will do your mid-year progress report. When we come back together as team leaders, we'll see each other again in January. You will be able to evaluate. So you will be able to say, how are you doing with your plan? Are you achieving your goal or not? And the same thing for the tasks that you put together, the outputs and the outcomes. And in the same way, it is for the end of the year report, which, as I said, a lot of you will be, should have completed at this point or be very close to completing to close the 2024 strategic planning cycle, sorry.
Thank you, Claude.
Yeah, go ahead.
Now, go ahead. Say what.
I was going to say one thing that is, since you're almost all the teams are currently in the planning tour completing their end of the year, our plan is to have the 2025 plans open at the end of next week with all the facilitators assigned. So everyone can be prepared and make sure that they have access to the planning tool and be ready for our PEPPI at the beginning of July. So what we're going to do is once they're all set, we are going to send an announcement through Whova. So make sure that you download the app. If you don't have the app, you're still going to get an email, but we're going to make sure that everyone knows when the next round of planning is open. So it will be announced at the end of next week or the beginning of the following.
Thank you, Claudia.
You're welcome.
This is a graphic that we have developed of the program improvement process, and it helps you really look at this. I love seeing the big picture and then getting into the details after I understand the big picture. So at the PEPPI, you'll be going through step 1, 2, and 3 prior to the mid-year progress update that takes place in January. So sometime in mid-November, December, the very 1st of January, you'll complete step 4, which is just a progress update. How are things going? Where are you at? Then we will meet with just team leaders and maybe 1 or 2 other program folks at that time. And then before the PEPPI each year, you'll complete step 5 and be able to really look at your strategic planning for the year. We're really trying to do everything we can to support teams in the strategic planning process in a way that makes sense and in a way that is beneficial to every team. So if you have suggestions, feel free to, or if you have ways that you're implementing this, let us know. We'd love to share that with others. Also, one thing we just wanted to mention too was really with this, we're following something that if you have a grant, you're very familiar with, which is the logic model, which is required. A logic model is just a one-page representation of where you're looking at, what are the overall, what is your grant going to accomplish? So it's sort of the same process that you're looking at here. And that's why we put this slide here to help you really think about the strategic planning process, because you're looking at the resources, your inputs, what do you have, what are you putting in to start with, then what are the activities, what are you going to do, and then from that you'll have outputs, which are products, credentials, maybe policies. You'll have outcomes, which will be the skills and the services, behaviors of your students, and then you'll have your impact, which really looks at your results. So we just want in every way possible to help you understand how strategic planning and the logic model all flow together. Your strategic planning should provide you information about your program application that many of you will be updating that this year, or you're developing a new program application. And then looking at what are the needs. The grant is for the implementation of the program. What are the needs in the grant, and what are your goals for those funds that you're going to be using? So I want to take and just see if anyone has any questions. You can unmute yourself if you want to ask verbally, or if you want to put, I know that the team's been answering some questions.
Drew?
Yes.
Deb.
Hey, Debbie.
Hey, I just had a quick question. And this, I hope I'm not speaking when I'm not supposed to.
Don't worry, it's fine. This is the time for questions.
There's somewhere in an email that we're supposed to bring like a poster for something.
Yes.
For those of us that have not admitted students yet, but we're just getting started, do we
Right.
need to do that and just share where we're at and what should we do?
You are an approved program, which
Right.
means that your poster might just be what your intentions are, to talk about what the credentials that you're going to be. Maybe these are the credentials, what your program, it should have your name of your program, because there'll be a lot of new teams there that aren't yet where you're at, because you're already an approved program and you also have a grant. And
Right.
so although you haven't admitted students yet, you're several steps down the road. And
Okay.
so we want those folks to be there too. We don't want it to just be the folks that are, that have been established for a couple of years, and we know that you're going to be enrolling students soon. So your poster should be what your intents are, and maybe you have on there where you're planning to when you're planning to enroll students. That's
Okay,
a great
awesome.
question. Great
Yeah,
question.
thank
Thank
you
you.
so much. I appreciate that.
Okay, I see another question. If you are a new team leader, should you send an email to the support email that is listed on the website for help with logging into the strategic planning tool? Claudia, do you want to answer that one?
Sure. So if you've never logged into the planning tool, it means that you will be accessing for the first time when we open 2025. So every team leader is going to get that notification. Actually, everyone that is registered for our institute that has of course registered through Whova is going to get that notifications of team members and team leaders. So your site is going to be created. The only thing that we will do, since you are a team leader, we will assign you as a team leader, and you just need to use your email address as the password to sign in the first time. After that, you will get prompted to create the password for your account. So you don't have to reach out to us. As soon as you get that notification email that says that your site is ready, use your email address as a password to log in to transitionprogramtool.org.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. That was my question. I actually think, though, I was unaware that this was another grant need. So I think we are supposed to be doing like the steps 4 and 5. I don't know that those have been done for my program yet. So I don't know if I need to do it before PEPI.
I'll reach out to you with an email and make sure that if your facilitator hasn't yet reached, I know that you're new, and thank you for mentioning that, and we'll be happy to make sure that we help with that connection.
Awesome. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Shania. So Christian, do you want to talk to folks about preparing for the PEPI?
Absolutely. And I'm sure at this point we all have some burning questions we're asking ourselves, like what day of the week is it? Did I leave the curling iron on? Are Ben and JLo really going to break up? And what are my responsibilities as a team leader? Well, thankfully, we have a slide, multiple slides for that. So as you're looking at preparing for the PEPI as a team leader, really take a look, for those of you that went through the planning last year, look at the planning tool, review it. You're starting to compile those end of year reports. Look at the data there and use that to drive some of the goals as you sit down to do your planning. You should have by now reached out to your facilitator and scheduled to complete that step 5, which is due on June 30th. If not, or you're having a hard time reaching your facilitator, please reach out to any of us here at the center, and we are happy to help you with that. And then for those of you that weren't with us last year, you're going to have a blank plan, and that's okay. So just know that you're okay with that. Also be familiar with the team leader and user manuals. If you need access to those, again, reach out. We are here to help. Bring a laptop. We are actually going to have charging stations, also known as like multi-plugs. Charging station just sounds cooler, so that's what we're going to call it. But we're going to have those this year. You may want to bring an abacus. I don't know, maybe you want to do some math and kind of kick it old school. But really bring that laptop, because that's going to be important. And then money, right? It's always about money. Make sure that you have those travel reimbursements ready to go. We all know how slow the gears of the financial world work. So the sooner you get going on that, the sooner we can get you your money, and the sooner you can, go out and buy something nice for yourself.
And Christian, let's remind them too that the only people that will be reimbursing travel for are those programs that do not yet have a grant. If you currently have a grant, you've agreed that you will travel to the PEPI, and we'll be providing your room, your parking, and 2 meals a day while you're there.
Yeah, thank you, Drew. Yeah, absolutely. And also, we also cover the cost of hotels. And pretty much, like Drew said, we're going to do breakfast and lunch. We will not cover the $10 Snickers bar that comes in your mini fridge. That is going to be up to you.
You ready for me to go forward?
I'm ready. All right. You also want to talk with your team before the Institute. Once you get a look at the Whova app and you see the agenda, divide and conquer. I know we have some teams out there that are quite robust. We have some that maybe only have 2 or 3 members, but make the most out of this time and divide your team up, figure out what sessions you want to go to. And then when you convene at the end of the day or even during planning, go over those sessions. What did you learn? Thank you. I just saw that comment, Jessica. I'm working on an amateur stand-up gig. But yeah, so communicate with your team. Another thing that we're going to be talking with the facilitators this year and really emphasizing is we want your facilitators to be in the sessions with you. Have them involved in not just your strategic planning, but when you sit down to talk with your facilitator, iron out some sessions where they're going to attend. And maybe, especially if you don't have 8 people on your team, that's a great opportunity to use that facilitator as somebody who can attend a session. We've got some great sessions, looking at these, I like to eat. That's no secret. It's like looking at a good buffet. I'm not talking about like Cece's Pizza. No shade on Cece's Pizza. They do a good job. But, this is a really nice buffet of presentations that we're going to have for you. And it'd be a shame for you to miss out just because, you had a smaller team. So get with your facilitator and figure out what sessions that, you guys want to go to. Work with your facilitators to make sure that your team can access the Whova app and the strategic planning tool. Things happen, technology goes out, but it's really important that everybody on the team knows how to use the app and get into the app. What we don't want is somebody sitting there during the student panel when it gets quiet and there's that moment and they go, I can't get into the app, and the other 280 people in attendance hear them. So help your team, help them to get in the app and find that strategic planning tool. And then start to identify roles. Your team, the people on it. Ideally you'll be the team leader, but who's a good note taker? This is really that paper tiger that they hear everything, they write it all down, and really kind of hit on the strengths of the individual members. All right. Okay, as a team leader, please make sure that all of your team members have registered both in the Whova app and that they've made hotel reservations. If for some reason they haven't made hotel reservations, I would suggest bringing a hammock, a cot, something like that. You're going to be setting that up in your room and you're going to be bunking it. Because we are at capacity. I think that's a great reflection of what's being built here at the center and all the work that you're doing to increase these opportunities across the state. So we're at capacity. So make sure your team has those hotel rooms and that they're registered in the Whova app. You can actually start to go in, for those of you that haven't used Whova before, and you can start to build your own personal agenda. So you can start to identify sessions and Whova will actually build your agenda for you. Support your team members and try to make sure that they're as active as possible in the participation. I know we kind of joke around here and there, but it's really important. This is an institute, and we do expect that your team members are participating fully. We understand that things happen, phone calls need to be taken, but we put a lot of time and effort into ensuring that these sessions meet your needs. And also, we go through those Qualtrics reports and we make sure that your comments are registered and that we're adhering and we're recognizing them. And so in that effort of reciprocity, please make sure that your team members are participating. Connect with the facility. Oh, okay.
Did I? Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. Connect with the facilitator. Maybe, we have some personalities on our teams that we maybe want to let our facilitators know about. Maybe we want to talk about strengths. Really, build that relationship with the facilitator. Connect with us. If you need technical support or any kind of clarification, there we go. Please reach out. It doesn't matter. Saturday, Sunday, 9 o'clock at night, 9 o'clock in the morning, we will respond. Okay, there we go. All right, during the PEPPI, gather your team. And I know that sounds kind of common sense, but really make sure that you know where your team is. Know what sessions they're going to. Make sure they know what's expected of them, like the expo and things like that. If you haven't been to the PEPPI before, we've got a great group of people here. And one of the things that I really appreciated as a program coordinator is how I was brought in and taken under the wing of some people that I hold in very high regard. And that's really the culture that we have at these institutes. You're going to learn a lot, but you're also going to get a lot of people who will help you. And that includes us on the team, but we also have some team leaders that have been doing this for quite some time. So use their knowledge, use their expertise. Review the domains and the benchmarks. Understand why we're doing this, get to the why and the purpose, connect the dots. Select a starting point, have what was that teaching philosophy? Begin with the end in mind, the backwards design. But this is the reverse of that. So here we want you to select a starting point. Where are you going to begin? And then once you figure out where you begin, then you can kind of figure out where you're going to end. Start compiling that data. Data is going to drive the planning. This should really illuminate those areas that you could either improve upon or, do some sort of amplification. I had an opportunity to attend a conference a while back, and it was all on data. And one of the speakers who works for the state of Colorado said there's no such thing as bad data. There's just data that informs and drives forward. So even if you're looking at something like, and I'll share, when I took over the hire program in Lee County, we did not have a single student that got a job. Now, I could sit there and say, well, that's bad data. It's not bad data. It's just data that I use to inform planning to really drive that program forward. And because of that, we were able to flip the script and really improve. I think it was like 150%. When you're going from zero, that's not much, but still, we use that data to drive that. have meaningful discussions with those benchmarks. If you have a member of your team who maybe has some superficial knowledge, really talk it through with them. And, you may even incorporate and understand it on a different level through that conversation. A lot of us have a teaching background. If you think about when you had to go back and teach something in a different way, it deepened your understanding of that material. And our benchmarks are the same way. And then finally, put together at least one sound plan. We don't need you to come in and do 18 goals, that have a few words here and there. We really want to make sure that this is meaningful and that it drives your program for the next year. And part of that, success is incorporating those team members, making sure if you have a wallflower and they don't really want to contribute, maybe have a one-on-one conversation with that person and encourage them and support them so that they feel as though they can contribute. Because some people just, it could be a lot. So really encourage your team members and get that really good plan together. Okay. When we talk about data, catchment area statistics, identify your targets. What is your target? And this varies program to program. We have some programs that they really, the totality of the United States is their catchment area. For others, it's a smaller geographic region, but understand what your target is and the data within there. And this is a piece for those of you I know that have been going through the continuing grant process or even the new grant process that has been challenging. If there's ever a piece of data that you need or you're having a hard time finding it, please reach out to us. We have data for days. District data for those indicators 1, 2, 13, and 14. Start pulling that data. Again, if you need help, we can connect you with staffing specialists or somebody else in your area who can help get you that. Even though it's June, we know people who work during the summer. Look at your existing FPCTP data. What is your enrollment? What are your employment statistics? What's your completion rates? What's your SAP? These, again, are all things that are going to drive that sound strategic plan. And I'll go back to Lee County as an example. When we came to the table for our first strategic planning session, which was virtual at the time because the FLPEPPI was still done online, ours was all about employment because we looked at the data and we saw that we needed to improve data. We also needed to improve completion percentages. So those were some important things for us. Know your institution's missions and their goals, and try to align your strategic plan with them in some way. We're going to have some community agencies there. If you have any additional information or you need information, again, reach out. For your evaluation data, again, data, right? This is going to inform. When you're looking at that evaluation, this is summative and formative. Throughout the year, where have your students really excelled? Peel it back a little bit. What were you doing to help with that, with the students excelling? If students were, falling back a little bit, what was the causation behind that? Again, this is going to create a more sound and concise plan. It's also going to save you time, right? Because we do give you quite a bit of time to plan, but for some teams, that's just not enough. And, looking at some of the feedback from last year, some teams were planning after, the end of the day. Some teams were planning during lunch, and that's fantastic. But we want you to work smarter and harder. So have that evaluation data, that formative and summative data, and use that to help you drive your planning. And then any other relevant data. We have some teams that are doing some amazing things out there with building relationships with employers, with following up with students, right? Any kind of data that you have that you think is relevant to your team, bring it, share it. Let's celebrate together with that data. Okay. When we look at that review, right, come together and wrap up your previous work, really summarize your progress, celebrate, and then if there's areas where you can improve, let's look for ways that we can improve that. Use the features on the site. You can upload documents, you can upload data, you can add links to data, you can have a summary report so that you can build your own work. And again, if there's anything that we're talking about with that you need help with, reach out to us. Claudia knows more about the strategic planning tool in Salesforce than I'll forget in a lifetime. So chances are, if you ask me a question about that, I'm going to go to Claudia, but that's okay. Feel free to ask Cheryl and I the questions, because that's more that we can keep off of Claudia and Drew's plate. But really, I can't tell you the number of questions that I used to ask as a coordinator. And I know I've joked over the years, but I know that, you know, I put a few gray hairs on Drew and Janice's head with some of the questions that I asked. But that's that supportive environment that we're really proud of here at the center. So what leads to success, right? A well-prepared team. Make sure your team's getting sleep. Make sure that, you know, they're getting the rest they need in order to be productive. Make sure that they have the tools necessary to be successful. Make sure that your team has access to the data, even if it's like a shared drive that you give to them. I know some teams will do a specific file for the PEPPI just with data. The biggest thing that's going to lead to your success are those facilitated planning times. And we really do listen to your feedback, and we try our best to make sure that for those of you that, you know, said you wanted the same facilitator this year, that's something that we really worked hard to do. But utilize those facilitated planning times and utilize your facilitators. You know, these are people who are experts in their field that are in some cases coming from Washington State just to be there to do the planning with you. So please use them. Be open. Now, open mindset's always better than a closed mindset, but think about new ways that you can make a difference. And then finally, just ask questions. Ask questions.
I'm sorry, Christian. I don't know.
No, you're okay. That's okay.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I hope I don't lose Christian to a comedy show somewhere, you know, so let's not tell him he's very good. Let's make him think that he's not. I'm going to stop the recording at this time so that we can and stop sharing as well.